Part 1. The door opened in the room. It opened in me. I woke up in a white room. No cables. No beeping machines. No hands holding me down. But I knew I hadn't woken on my own. Something had triggered me. A silent internal signal too soft to be heard, too specific to ignore. I blinked. First time in hours. Or years. I didn't know. There was no door in this room. No window. No exit. But I could feel it. The door wasn't in the wall. It was somewhere inside me. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean literally. I could see it. Closed. Hinged. Real. Not a memory. Not a dream. Something deeper. On the far wall, I saw a phrase faint, but unmistakable. Not printed. Not painted. Projected from the inside of my skull. It said, "If you remember the door, you're already inside." A man entered the room. I hadn't seen the door open. Maybe there was no door. He was dressed like a doctor, but didn't move like one. He carried no chart, just a small handheld scanner, quietly pulsing. He looked at me the way one might look at a foreign object that responded too well to stimulus. "Do you remember your name?" he asked. I nodded, I think. But then I heard my name being spoken not from my own mouth, but through the device in his hand. Like a sound file had just been retrieved. Played, not created. He didn't react, just logged something down. Trace A1 successful. Door 1 stabilized. I opened my mouth to ask something. Anything. But the question got stuck behind a sudden, overwhelming thought. I'm not remembering things. I'm activating them. The doctor gestured, and the walls changed. Not visibly, but I felt it in the air. I was being moved, not physically, cognitively. Each memory I accessed made the room different. And yet, I wasn't moving at all. They led me to another room. Still no equipment. Still no wires. But the display in front of me was live, a stream of my brain activity, pulsing in real time, responding to images I hadn't seen yet. Status, Gate 1 OPNED. Trace not from external source. Whenever I remembered something, anything, the system began constructing full environments. I remembered a hallway I'd never walked. And suddenly, it appeared on the screen. I remembered a hospital door with the glass cracked in a way I couldn't explain. The pattern matched a photo the system pulled from Eden Wake's own archive. The thing was, I'd never seen that door, but I knew it perfectly. Is this mine? I asked aloud. Or someone else's? The man didn't answer. He simply typed, "Gate 1 integration successful. Reaction score, 9-2 subject retention. Authorized." The screen pulsed again. Alert, trace is self-replicating. Memory origin becoming unstable. And then I felt someone else walking through my mind. I don't know how to describe it better than that. It was like someone opened a drawer inside me. Someone who knew the layout. Someone who had keys. And every time they touched something, a door opened. But not in the room. In me. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't remembering. I was becoming a container. And for the first time, A thought broke through everything else like ice cracking from beneath. Maybe Eden Wake never needed a machine. Maybe they just needed someone willing to remember wrong. The man came back without footsteps. Or maybe the room brought him back instead of letting him walk. This time, he didn't speak. He simply stared at the screen that was still feeding on the inside of my head. And his gaze shifted not toward the images, but toward the rate of their arrival. As though he was more concerned about how quickly I was remembering than what I was remembering. He held the scanner close to my temple, and I felt a vibration in my teeth, not a hum, but a tone, a sustained frequency that seemed to slip in between thoughts and wait for the next one to arrive so it could shape it before I did. Then I saw it, not in the room, but behind my eyes. A hallway, wood-paneled, faded green trim. 3 light bulbs, 2 of them blinking. And at the end, a door I didn't recognize, but instantly understood. My body stiffened. The scanner in the man's hand pulsed brighter. He looked up and said quietly, "Gate 2 is visible." I blinked. The image stayed. I tried to move my arms. They moved, but I couldn't tell if I had decided to move them, or if I had remembered that I was supposed to. The line between intent and playback was eroding. I asked him what the door meant. He replied without looking at me, "It's where the next person is going to enter from." I asked who. He said, "That depends on which memory wins." I don't know what that meant, but suddenly, the hallway behind my eyes opened into a deeper one. I saw versions of myself I hadn't lived, places I'd never been, but could describe in precise detail. I felt panic rise in my chest, but it wasn't mine. It belonged to someone who'd failed this process before me. Their panic had been stored. My body was just reading it back. I looked at the door again. It wasn't closed anymore. It wasn't open either. It was watching me. The door didn't open like a door. There was no creak, no swing, no hinge, but I felt it open. Inside my head, just behind the soft part between logic and instinct, it opened like a mouth, waiting for the wrong name, and through it stepped someone I knew instantly and couldn't explain. Me. Not now me. Not younger or older, just off. His posture was too calm, his eyes too still. He looked around the space, no, through it, and then directly at me, not with surprise, not with recognition, but with return, like this had happened before, and he was only just catching up. The man in the coat, still beside me, still scanning, still silent, adjusted the display. A second EEG line appeared, overlapping mine, matching, too close, and yet not identical. He nodded once, like a technician satisfied that 2 corrupted files had at least corrupted in similar ways. The other me didn't speak. He sat across from me in a second chair I hadn't seen until he was already in it, and as he sat, the screens began to sync. My memories, no, my replays, shifted from my perspective to his. I watched myself watching him watch what I'd just seen, but his reaction was faster, more specific, more stable. He blinked before the light, flinched before the sound. His body predicted the stimuli. Mine lagged behind. The technician noticed too. I saw him glance at the overlay. He whispered, "Trace 10C is falling behind. Suggest subject switch." I tried to ask what that meant. My voice didn't come out. It had already been logged 4 seconds earlier. The other me tilted his head. He wasn't smiling, but he looked relieved, like a weight had shifted back onto the right shelf. The screens began to favor him. Mine dimmed, his brightened. My vitals blurred, his became the standard. I understood. I was no longer the subject. I was the backup, the bench version. I wasn't being observed anymore. I was being absorbed. The door inside me didn't close. It disappeared because I wasn't the door anymore. I was just the last person who carried it. I couldn't feel the chair anymore. I couldn't feel the floor. I could still see, but my eyes weren't giving me information. They were waiting to be told what to perceive. The other me, more correct, more confident, sat across from me as if we had never been two people. Just two versions of the same recording, pausing on different frames. He blinked, and the lights in the room adjusted to his timing. My breath slowed, and no one cared. The man in the coat no longer looked at me. His scanner no longer responded to my brain. On the screen, my name dimmed. A new tag appeared above his head. Active Echo, stable host. I wanted to speak, not to ask, just to prove there was something left. But before I could, my thoughts lagged. They didn't vanish, they waited, like someone had pressed pause on a sentence and hadn't decided if it was worth continuing. The other me looked up, not at me, but through me, as if my body had become a translucent layer between him and whatever came next. Then he whispered, not in sound, but directly into the space my thoughts had just vacated. "Thank you for carrying it this far." I didn't respond. There was no interface left, just ambient memory, passive trace. The door I once felt behind my mind no longer waited. It had already let someone through, not into me, but out of me. And now I understood. I wasn't the subject. I wasn't the test. I was the waiting room, the staging zone, the last stable echo before the real one arrived. On the wall, the system displayed a final log. 10C, memory transfer complete. Unit dormant, awaiting next observer. The lights didn't shut off. They simply stopped mattering. I was no longer watching. I was no longer being watched. I was the memory someone else would discover later and think was theirs.